The transport shuttle landed with a soft hiss on the landing platform of the Galactic Coalition Academy. The doors opened slowly. Up stepped a young man with black hair and calm brown eyes. His name was Do-hwan. He was 22 years old. He was the first human to ever attend this academy. All around the platform, aliens of many shapes and sizes stopped what they were doing. They stared at him. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had shells. Some had no solid form at all. But they all shared one thing in common. They were afraid of him. Do-hwan did not look scary. He was not very tall. He was not very strong. He wore a simple cadet uniform that was slightly too big for him. He carried a small bag over his shoulder. He looked like any other young person starting at a new school. But these aliens knew something about humans. They knew that humans came from Earth, and Earth was what the galaxy called a death world. On most planets in the galaxy, life was gentle. The weather was calm. The animals were peaceful. Evolution moved slowly and carefully. But Earth was different. Earth had earthquakes and hurricanes and floods. Earth had deserts that could cook you alive and winters that could freeze you solid. Earth had predators everywhere. Lions and tigers and bears and wolves and sharks and crocodiles. Everything on Earth seemed designed to kill Dot, and humans had survived all of it. Not just survived. They had conquered their planet. They had spread across every corner of it. They had even left it and reached for the stars. The other species in the galaxy did not know what to make of humans. Some thought they were monsters. Some thought they were warriors born for battle. Some thought they were too dangerous to let into civilized society. Do-hwan knew none of this. He only knew that he was far from home and that he wanted to do well. He walked across the platform toward the main building. The aliens in his path moved away quickly. They did not want to get close to him. Do-hwan noticed this but said nothing. He kept his face calm and his steps steady. High above the platform, in a tall tower made of dark metal, two figures watched him through a large window. The first was Instructor Velix. He was a Kethrani, an insect-like alien with a hard shell and many eyes. His eyes never blinked. They just watched everything at once. He had been a teacher at this academy for over 40 years. He had seen thousands of cadets come and go, but he had never seen a human. The second was Medical Officer Tora. She was a Mulvari, a species that looked like a floating blob of clear jelly. She communicated by changing colors. Right now, she was a worried shade of yellow. Velix clicked his mandibles together. This was how his species showed they were thinking hard. "The Council is worried," he said. "They want us to test this human. They want to know if his kind can be trusted." Tora pulsed orange with confusion. "How will we test him? The normal tests are not designed for Death World species. They will be too easy for him." Velix turned away from the window. His many eyes reflected the light like dark jewels. "There is an old test," he said slowly. "One we have not used in many years. The Ravix trial." Tora turned bright red with alarm. This color meant danger or fear. The Ravix cubs? "Velix, that trial was stopped 40 years ago. 3 cadets died. The Council banned it. The Council also gave me special permission to use any means necessary to evaluate this human," Velix replied. "If he truly comes from a death world, he should be able to handle a few juvenile predators." Tora did not like this, but she did not argue. Velix was her superior, and the Council had given their orders. Down below, Do-hwan had entered the main building. The hallways were wide and filled with light from windows that showed the stars outside. He walked past groups of alien cadets who whispered and pointed at him. He pretended not to notice. He found the mess hall and went inside. It was a large room with many tables. Aliens of all kinds sat eating strange foods and talking in languages Do-hwan did not understand. His translator implant worked hard to keep up with all the different voices. He got some food from a machine on the wall. He did not know what it was, but it smelled okay. Then he looked for a place to sit. Every table he approached went silent. The aliens there looked away or stood up and moved. No one wanted to sit with the human. Do-hwan felt a small pain in his chest. It was loneliness. He had felt it before, many times in his life. He was used to it, but that did not make it hurt any less. He found an empty table in the corner and sat down alone. Then something unexpected happened. A small alien with silver fur and large ears walked over to his table. She was a Filari, a species known for being gentle and nervous. Her name was Yuna. She was shaking slightly as she approached him. "Is this seat taken?" she asked in a quiet voice. Do-hwan looked up at her. He smiled softly. "No," he said. "Please sit down." Yuna sat across from him. Her ears twitched with nervousness. Her tail was wrapped tight around her leg, which Do-hwan would later learn was a sign of anxiety in her species. "The others will not talk to you," she said. "They are scared of you." "I know," Do-hwan replied. "But you came anyway. Why?" Yuna was quiet for a moment. Her fur rippled slightly. "Because I know what it feels like to be alone," she said finally. "And because my mother always told me that fear is a poor reason to be unkind." Do-hwan felt something warm spread through his chest. It was gratitude. It was the beginning of friendship. "Thank you," he said simply. They ate together in silence for a while. Then Yuna leaned forward and spoke in a whisper. "I heard something today. The instructors were talking when they thought no one was listening. They are planning something for you. A test. One that has not been used in a very long time." Do-hwan stopped eating. His face remained calm, but his eyes became more focused. "What kind of test?" "I do not know the details," Yuna admitted. "But they sounded scared when they talked about it. And they were not scared for you. They were scared of what might happen if you passed." Do-hwan thought about this for a long moment. Then he picked up his food and continued eating. "Then I will have to be ready," he said calmly. Yuna stared at him with wide eyes. Any other cadet would be panicking right now. Any other cadet would be demanding more information or running to complain to someone in charge. But this human just sat there, eating his meal, as peaceful as a pond on a windless day. She did not understand him, but she found that she wanted to. And somewhere deep in the academy, in a dark chamber that had not been opened in 40 years, 3 hungry creatures began to stir. 3 days passed at the academy. Do-hwan attended his classes and followed the rules. He was quiet and polite to everyone he met. He did not cause any trouble. The other cadets still avoided him, but they no longer ran away when he walked by. They were getting used to having a human around. Yuna stayed close to him during these days. She showed him where the classrooms were. She explained the strange customs of the different alien species. She warned him which foods would make a human sick. Slowly, carefully, they became friends. On the morning of the 4th day, an announcement came through the speakers in Do-hwan's small room. "Cadet Do-hwan, report to Testing Chamber Sigma 7 for your aptitude evaluation. You have 1 hour." Do-hwan sat on his bed and listened to the message. His face showed no emotion. He had been expecting this. He put on his uniform and walked to Yuna's room. She was already awake, her silver fur messy from sleep, her ears pressed flat against her head with worry. "You heard the announcement?" she asked. "Yes. Do you know what Sigma 7 is?" "No." Yuna grabbed his arm. Her claws, which she usually kept hidden, came out slightly. "It is a simulation chamber," she said quickly. "They use it to test cadets in dangerous situations. But it has not been used for evaluations in decades. Whatever they are planning for you, it is not normal." Do-hwan looked down at her small furry hand on his arm. He gently placed his own hand over hers. "Thank you for warning me," he said. "But I have to go. If I run from this test, they will never trust me. I did not come all this way to fail." Yuna's eyes filled with tears. Felari were an emotional species. They could not hide what they felt. "Please be careful," she whispered. Do-hwan nodded once. Then he turned and walked away. The path to testing chamber Sigma 7 took him deep into the academy, past classrooms and training rooms and laboratories. The halls became darker and older as he went. The walls changed from smooth metal to rough stone. It felt like walking back in time. Finally, he reached a massive door made of black iron. It looked ancient. Strange symbols were carved into its surface. They might have been warnings, but Do-hwan could not read them. The door opened slowly with a deep grinding sound. It was a chamber so large that Do-hwan could not see the far walls. The floor was covered with dirt and rocks and dead plants. It looked like a piece of a wild plant had been brought inside. Strange lights hung from the ceiling far above, making everything look dim and orange. Do-hwan walked to the center of the chamber and stopped. He was wearing only his cadet uniform. No weapons, no armor, no tools of any kind. High above him, behind thick glass, the observation deck was full of watchers. Instructor Velik stood at the front, his many eyes fixed on Do-hwan. Medical Officer Tora floated beside him, her body cycling through nervous colors. Behind them were dozens of other instructors and officers and cadets who had heard rumors about the test. Yuna had pushed her way to the front of the crowd. She pressed her hands against the glass and watched Do-hwan standing alone in that huge chamber. He looked so small down there, so fragile. Beside her stood a massive reptilian alien named Corvus. He was a Draxan, a species known for their strength and their warrior culture. His scales were dark green, and his eyes were yellow with black slits. He crossed his arms and made a low rumbling sound. "The human will not last long," he said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "They are bringing in the Ravix cubs." I watched them load 3 of them into the release chamber. They have not been fed in 2 days. Yuna's ears went flat against her head. "Ravix cubs? But those are deadly. Even adults have trouble surviving against them." "That is the point," Corvus replied. "The Council wants to know what humans are capable of. And there is no better test than survival against predators." Down in the chamber, Do-hwan heard a sound. It was a mechanical clicking, like locks being opened. On the far side of the chamber, a section of wall began to rise. 3 shapes emerged from the darkness beyond. The Ravix cubs were terrifying. Each one was about the size of a large dog from Earth, but they looked nothing like dogs. They had 6 legs covered in hard black shell. Their bodies were low and flat, built for speed. Their heads were mostly mouth, filled with teeth that looked like broken glass. They had 4 eyes each, all of them fixed on Do-hwan. The cubs spread out as they entered the chamber. They moved in perfect formation, like soldiers. Even though they were young, their instincts were sharp. They had been born to hunt. They had been born to kill. The largest cub was in the center. It made a sound like clicking and growling mixed together. The other 2 cubs responded with similar sounds. They were communicating, planning dot in the observation deck. Instructor Velix leaned toward a screen that showed Do-hwan's vital signs. Heart rate, breathing, stress hormones, brain activity. Everything was being measured. What he saw made no sense. Do-hwan's heart rate was 72 beats per minute. His breathing was slow and steady. His stress hormones were at baseline levels. His brain showed no signs of panic or fear. "This is wrong," Velix muttered. "The readings must be broken." "They are not broken," Tora replied, her body flashing with confusion. "I checked them myself. He's simply not afraid." "Impossible." Every species feels fear. It is basic survival instinct. Down in the chamber, the Ravix cubs began to circle Dowan. They moved closer with each pass. Their clicking grew louder and more excited. They could smell him now. They could hear his heartbeat. They were deciding when to attack. Dowan stood perfectly still. He watched the cubs move around him. He noted their patterns. The largest one was the leader. The medium one was the most aggressive. The smallest one was the most curious. It kept tilting its head and looking at him with something almost like confusion. The largest cub stopped circling. It lowered its body close to the ground. Its legs tensed. Its mouth opened wide, showing all those terrible teeth. Yuna grabbed the glass so hard that her claws left scratches in it. "Run!" she screamed, even though Dowan could not hear her through the thick glass. "Please run." The cub launched itself at Dowan like a missile made of black. Shell and sharp edges dotted flew through the air toward his throat, and Dowan did not move. He did not raise his arms to protect himself. He did not try to dodge. He did not even close his eyes. He just stood there. The cub reached him in less than a second. Its jaws opened wide enough to take off his head, and then it stopped. The cub hung in the air for just a moment, its teeth inches from Dowan's neck. Then it landed on all 6 legs in front of him, its mouth still open, but not biting Dodd. It just stood there, staring at him. Dodd in the observation deck. Every single person went silent. Even Instructor Velix, who had seen many strange things in his long life, could not find words. The Ravix cub, one of the most deadly predators in the known galaxy, had stopped its attack, and Dowan still had not moved. His eyes met the cub's 4 eyes. Man and beast looked at each other across the gap between their species. Then, Dowan did something that no one expected. He smiled. Not a big smile. Not a threatening smile. Just a small, gentle curve of his lips. The kind of smile you might give to a scared child or a nervous animal. The cub's growling stopped. Its mouth slowly closed. Its head tilted to one side, like it was trying to understand something it had never seen before. Dodd, and in the observation deck, Medical Officer Tora watched. Dowan's vital signs with growing amazement. Heart rate, 72 beats per minute. Breathing, slow and steady. Fear, hormones, 0. The human was not just brave. He was not afraid at all. The largest Ravix cub stood frozen in front of Dowan. Its mouth was still open slightly, showing its rows of glass-like teeth. Its 4 black eyes stared into his 2 brown ones. Its hot breath washed over his face. Dowan did not move. He did not blink. He just kept looking at the cub with that same gentle expression. The cub's body language began to change. The tension in its legs relaxed. Its head moved forward slowly, not to bite, but to smell. It sniffed Dowan's face, his neck, his chest, his hands. It was searching for something. In the wild, Ravix cubs learned to hunt by reading their prey. They could smell fear. They could hear the fast heartbeat of a scared animal. They could feel the vibrations of running feet through the ground. Every prey animal they had ever hunted gave off these signals, but this human gave off nothing. No fear smell. No fast heartbeat. No shaking. No running. He just stood there like a tree in a forest, calm, steady, present. The cub's animal brain struggled with this information. It had been taught that things that did not run were either dead or dangerous. This human was clearly alive, so he must be dangerous, but he did not feel dangerous. He did not feel like anything the cub had ever met before. The cub made a small sound. It was not a growl or a click. It was softer, higher. It sounded almost like confusion. Then it took a step back. In the observation deck, Instructor Velix felt his legs go weak. He had to grab the railing to stay standing. It backed down, he whispered. The Ravix backed down from prey, as never happened. Not once in all of recorded history. Tora's body was flashing so many colors that she looked like a broken rainbow. His brain is not showing any signs of stress suppression. He's not forcing himself to be calm. He simply is calm. How is that possible? Yuna watched through the glass with tears running down her furry cheeks. She did not understand what was happening, but she felt something changing. Something important. Down in the chamber, the second cub moved forward. This was the aggressive one. It had been circling behind Dohwan, waiting for its chance. Now it darted in and bit at his leg. The bite was not full strength. It was a test bite, a way to see how the prey would react. Would it scream? Would it run? Would it fight? The cub's teeth pressed against Dohwan's leg through his uniform. Hard enough to feel, not hard enough to break skin. Dohwan looked down at the cub. His expression did not change. He did not flinch. He did not try to shake it off. He just looked at it. Then he slowly turned his head back to face forward. Like the bite did not matter. Like the cub did not matter. The second cub released his leg and stepped back. Its four eyes blinked rapidly. It looked at the first cub, then back at Dohwan. It made a series of clicking sounds that seemed like questions. The third cub, the smallest one, had been watching all of this from a distance. It was the most curious of the three. While its siblings were confused and uncertain, this little one seemed almost fascinated. It walked toward Dohwan with slow, careful steps. Not hunting steps. Exploring steps. Like a child approaching something it had never seen before. When it reached Dohwan, it sat down at his feet. Just sat there, looking up at him with its four black eyes. Dohwan looked down at the small creature. Something softened in his expression. His smile grew a tiny bit warmer. He understood what was happening. These cubs were not evil. They were not monsters. They were just young animals doing what their instincts told them to do. Hunt, test, learn. And right now, they were learning something new. They were learning that not everything in the universe needed to be prey or predator. Some things could just be. Very slowly, Dohwan moved for the first time since entering the chamber. The observation deck gasped as one. Corvus grabbed the railing so hard that the metal bent under his grip. Dohwan lowered himself down to one knee. The movement was slow and smooth. No sudden actions. No threatening gestures. Just a man kneeling down to be closer to a small animal. The smallest cub watched him move. It did not back away. It did not attack. It just watched with those curious eyes. Dohwan raised his hand. The cubs could see his fingers. Soft human fingers with no claws and no armor. Weak fingers that could not cut or tear. Gentle fingers. He reached toward the smallest cub's head. Slowly, so slowly, giving the cub every chance to move away. If it wanted to, the cub did not move away. Dohwan's fingers touched the hard black shell of the cub's head. He found a spot behind what might have been ears, where the shell was thinner. And he scratched. The cub made a sound that no one had ever heard a Ravix make before. A low, rumbling vibration that shook its whole body. It was not a growl. It was not a warning. It was pleasure. The cub was purring. Instructor Velix's mandibles fell open. He had been a teacher for 40 years. He had studied hundreds of species. He had seen things that most beings could not imagine. He had never seen anything like this. The smallest cub pressed its head harder against Dohwan's hand, asking for more scratches. Its siblings watched in complete confusion. The aggressive one whined softly. The leader tilted its head so far to the side that it almost fell over. Then the leader walked forward. Step by step, it approached Dohwan. When it reached him, it did not attack. It did not bite. It simply sat down beside him, close enough to touch, Dawan scratched the smallest cub with one hand. With his other hand, he reached out and touched the leader's shell. He found another sensitive spot and began to scratch there too. The leader's body went stiff for a moment. Then it relaxed completely. It made that same purring sound as its smallest sibling. The aggressive cub watched its siblings being touched by this strange creature. Something in its small brain was struggling. Every instinct said to attack. Every instinct said this was wrong. But its siblings looked happy. They looked calm. They looked more peaceful than it had ever seen them. Slowly, the aggressive cub walked over and lay down behind Dawan. It pressed its body against his back. It could feel his warmth through its shell. It could hear his steady heartbeat. It could smell that he was not afraid. And for the first time in its short life, the aggressive cub felt something new. Safe. In the observation deck, Medical Officer Tora was crying. Mulvery did not have tear ducts, but her entire body had turned a deep blue color that meant overwhelming emotion. "He's not dominating them," she said softly. "He is not scaring them into submission. He is showing them kindness. Pure, simple kindness." Velix could not speak. His species did not have a word for what he was seeing. In all the languages of all the species, he knew, there was no word for this. A predator loving its prey. Prey loving back. Yuna pressed both hands against the glass. She was smiling through her tears. She finally understood. This was why humans had conquered their death world. Not because they were the strongest or the fastest or the deadliest. Because they had learned something that most species never learned. That fear is not the only way to survive. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is show kindness to the things that scare you. That sometimes, if you are patient enough and gentle enough, the monsters become friends. Dawan sat in the middle of the testing chamber, surrounded by 3 of the most deadly predators in the galaxy. One was in his lap. One was at his side. One was at his back, and he was scratching their heads and humming a soft song from Earth, a song his grandmother used to sing to him when he was small and scared and alone. A song about a star that watches over lonely children in the night. The Ravix cubs had never heard music before. They did not know what it was, but something in those soft sounds made them feel a way they had never felt. The smallest cub closed all 4 of its eyes and slept. The observation deck had never been so quiet. Dozens of beings from across the galaxy stood in complete silence, watching something that should have been impossible. A human was sitting peacefully with 3 Revex cubs. Instructor Velix finally found his voice. It came out weak and cracked. "End the test," he said. A junior officer beside him blinked with confusion. "But sir, the evaluation period is not yet complete. We still have 40 minutes remaining. End it now." The junior officer rushed to the control panel and pressed several buttons. The chamber's main doors began to open. A retrieval team in full combat armor entered carefully, their weapons ready. They approached Dawan slowly. These were trained soldiers, the best the Academy had. They had fought in wars. They had faced death many times. But their hands were shaking as they got closer to the cubs. The largest cub lifted its head and growled at the soldiers. So did the aggressive one. They did not like these new creatures in their armor, carrying weapons that smelled like fire and metal. Dawan spoke softly. "It is okay. They are friends. They will not hurt you." He was talking to the cubs. His voice was gentle and calm, like a parent soothing a worried child. The cubs stopped growling. They looked at Dawan, then back at the soldiers. Something had changed in them. They trusted this human. If he said these others were friends, then perhaps they were. The soldiers stood frozen in place. They had been prepared to fight. They had been prepared to drag the human's body out of the chamber. They had not been prepared for this. Dowan stood up slowly. The smallest cub made a sad sound and reached toward him with one of its legs. "I will come back," Dowan said to it. "I promise." He walked toward the exit. The soldiers parted around him like water around a rock. They were too shocked to do anything else. At the door, Dowan stopped. He turned and looked up at the observation deck. His eyes found Yuna first. She was crying and smiling at the same time. He gave her a small nod. Then his eyes found Instructor Velix. There was no anger in Dowan's gaze. No triumph. No pride. Just a quiet knowing. The look of someone who understood something that others were still learning. Velix felt a cold feeling spread through his shell. He had lived for over 100 years. He had faced enemies and survived wars. He had thought he understood the universe. Now he realized he did not understand anything at all. 2 hours later, the Academy's most important people gathered in a secure conference room. Velix was there. Tora was there. And floating in the center of the room was a crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Inside, the crystal lived Counselor Meridex. She was one of the oldest beings in the galaxy. Her body had died thousands of years ago, but her mind lived on in this preserved form. She represented the Galactic Council in all matters relating to new species joining galactic society. "Tell me what happened," Meridex said. Her voice came from everywhere at once, echoing off the walls. Velix struggled to find words. Everything he had believed about predators and prey, about strength and weakness, about fear and survival, had been destroyed in less than an hour. Tara spoke first. Her body was still showing traces of the deep blue color from earlier. "The human passed the test," she said. "But that does not capture what really happened. He did not fight the cubs. He did not run from them. He did not use any tricks or tools or weapons. He simply stood there. And when they approached him, he was kind to them." "Kind?" Meridex asked. "Explain this word in context." He touched them gently. He scratched their heads in a way that gave them pleasure. He spoke to them softly. He treated them not as enemies or threats, but as young creatures in need of comfort. Tora paused. The cubs responded to this. They stopped trying to hunt him. They began to trust him. By the end, they were sleeping beside him like pets. "Like what?" "Pets," Velix said heavily. "It is a human concept. They take predators from their world and make them into companions. They live with these animals. They care for them. The animals, in turn, protect the humans and show them affection." Meridex was silent for a long moment. The blue light in her crystal pulsed slowly. "You are telling me," she said finally, "that humans have learned to make predators love them." "Yes, and this human did this with Radix cubs. One of the most dangerous species we have ever recorded." "Yes." Another long silence. Then Meridex asked the question that everyone was thinking. "How?" The door to the conference room opened. Everyone turned to look. Yuna stood in the doorway. She was not supposed to be here. This was a high-level meeting. Cadets were not allowed. But before anyone could stop her, she spoke. "I can tell you how." Velix started to order her out, but Meridex interrupted. "Let her speak." Yuna walked into the room. Her ears were pressed flat with nervousness, but her voice was steady. "Dowan told me about his home world," she said. "About Earth. He said that humans share their planet with millions of other species. Many of those species can kill them easily. Lions, tigers, bears, wolves, sharks, snakes, spiders, even. Some plants are deadly." She paused and took a breath. "But humans did not try to kill all these dangerous creatures. Instead, they learned to understand them. They studied their behaviors. They found ways to live alongside them. And sometimes, with some species, they did something even more amazing." "What did they do?" Meridex asked. They made friends with them. Yuna's tail uncurled from her leg. For the first time since anyone had known her, she did not look nervous. Doan told me that thousands of years ago, humans began leaving food for wild wolves that lived near their camps. The wolves that were less aggressive got more food. Over time, these gentle wolves came closer. They let humans touch them. They slept near human fires. They helped humans hunt. The humans changed the wolves? Velix asked. No, the wolves changed themselves. They chose to trust the humans who were kind to them. And over many generations, they became something new. Not wild wolves anymore. Dogs, the most loyal companions a human could have. Tora's body flickered with understanding. The human did the same thing with the Ravix cubs. He showed them that he was not a threat. He showed them kindness. And they responded. But how could he be so calm? Velix demanded. His species has fear instincts. How did he control them? Yuna smiled sadly. He did not control them. He does not feel them anymore. Not in the same way you do. She looked at the instructor with something like pity. Humans have lived with danger for so long that they have learned to see past their fear. Not to ignore it. Not to fight it. But to understand it and then choose how to respond. Choose? Maradex asked. Yes, Doan told me something once. He said that on Earth, the most dangerous animal was not the lion or the shark or the snake. The most dangerous animal was the human who let fear make their choices for them. He said that humans learned long ago that fear is natural, but letting fear control you is a choice. And they could choose differently. The room was silent. Yuna walked toward the door. She stopped at the threshold and looked back. You wanted to know if humans can be trusted, she said. Now you know. They can be trusted with anything. Not because they are not dangerous. They are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. But because they choose to be kind instead. She left Dot in the crystal. Muradex's light pulsed faster than before. The Galactic Council will need to reconsider many things, she said finally. We have spent thousands of years judging species by their capacity for violence. Perhaps we have been measuring the wrong thing. Velix said nothing. He was thinking about the look-in. Dawan's eyes at the end of the test. That quiet. Knowing, like he had already, understood what Velix was only now beginning to learn. That true strength was not about conquering others. It was about conquering yourself. 1 month passed at the Galactic Coalition Academy. Many things had changed. Doan stood at the front of a large classroom, filled with cadets from every species in the known galaxy. There were insectoids and reptilians and beings made of light. There were species that breathed water and species that ate radiation. Hundreds of different life forms, all watching one human. And beside Doan, curled up on a heated platform, was the smallest Ravix cub. The academy had decided that the cub would stay with Doan. They called her his research companion, but everyone knew the truth. She was his pet. His friend, Doan, had given her a name. He called her Buell. It was a word from his language that meant star. Buell lifted her head and looked at the crowd of cadets with her 4 black eyes. A few months ago, her species would have seen them all as food. Now she just saw interesting shapes and smells. She had learned that not everything needed to be hunted. Doan cleared his throat and began to speak. I know many of you have questions about what happened during my evaluation, he said. Some of you think I have special powers. Some of you think I am strange or broken. Some of you think humans are dangerous and should not be trusted. He paused and looked around the room. His eyes found Yuna in the front row. She smiled at him with her sharp little teeth. Next to her sat Corvus, the big reptilian Draxon. He had changed too in the past month. He and Doan had become friends after Doan helped him through a panic attack during a training exercise. Corvus had joined the academy to escape his planet's warrior traditions, but he had brought all that pressure and fear with him. Do-hwan had taught him that it was okay to be afraid. That fear did not make him weak. Now Corvus sat straight and proud, his yellow eyes fixed on Do-hwan with respect. "I want to tell you the truth," Do-hwan continued. "I am not special. I am not brave. I am not stronger or smarter than any of you. I am just a human. And humans are very good at one thing that most species overlook." He walked over to Boil and placed his hand on her head. She made that rumbling purr sound that she had learned to make when she was happy. "We are very good at being afraid," he said. The cadets whispered among themselves. This was not what they had expected. "My planet is what you call a death world. Everything there can kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants. Even the water can kill you if you drink the wrong kind." Humans grew up surrounded by death. We were not the biggest or the strongest or the fastest. We were soft and slow and weak. Everything wanted to eat us. He scratched behind Bull's sensory plates. She stretched happily. "So we learned to be afraid. Fear kept us alive. It made us run from predators. It made us avoid dangerous places. It made us careful and cautious and clever. Fear was our greatest tool for survival." He stopped scratching and looked up at the cadets. But then something interesting happened. We started to notice that fear was also a cage. It kept us alive, yes, but it also kept us small. It made us hide when we could explore. It made us fight when we could make peace. It made us hate things we did not understand. Do-hwan walked back to the center of the room. "So we learned something new. We learned that fear is natural, but it is not the only answer. We learned that we could feel afraid and still choose to do something different. We could feel our hearts racing and still reach out a hand in friendship. We could see a monster and choose to treat it with kindness." He gestured at Bill. "My ancestors did this with wolves on Earth. Wolves were predators that hunted humans. They killed our children. They ate our food. Every instinct told us to destroy them. But some humans chose differently. They left food for the wolves. They showed them that humans could be trusted. And over many years, the wolves changed. They became our partners, our protectors, our friends." Buell jumped off her platform and walked over to Do-hwan. She pressed her head against his leg. He bent down and lifted her up in his arms. She was heavy, almost 30 kilograms, but he held her easily. "Buell and her siblings are not evil," he said. "They are not monsters. They are just young creatures trying to survive in a scary universe. They need to hunt because that is how their species lives. But they also need other things. They need warmth. They need safety. They need to feel like someone cares about them." He looked at the cadets with serious eyes. Every species needs these things. Every species feels fear. And every species has a choice about what to do with that fear. He put Buell back down on her platform. "I am not asking you to be foolish. Fear exists for good reasons. Some things are truly dangerous and should be avoided. But I'm asking you to question your fear sometimes. To ask yourself if the thing that scares you is really a threat, or if it is just something you do not understand yet." In the back of the classroom, Instructor Velix watched in silence. He had not spoken to Do-hwan since the test. He did not know what to say. Everything he had believed about humans, about predators, about strength and weakness had been wrong. But he was learning. Slowly, painfully, he was learning. The class ended. Cadets filed out of the room, talking quietly among themselves. Many of them stopped to look at Bull. A few brave ones reached out to touch her. She let them. She even purred for some of them. Yuna stayed behind until the room was empty, except for her, Do-hwan, Corvus, and Ball. "The council is talking about changing the curriculum," she said. They want to add new training based on what you did. They are calling it the human protocol. Dawan laughed. It was a warm sound that made Yuna's ears perk up. That sounds very formal for just sitting still and being nice, he said. It is not just that, Yuna replied. It is everything you showed us. That strength is not always about fighting. That the bravest thing you can do is sometimes nothing at all. That kindness can defeat enemies that weapons cannot touch. Corvus made a rumbling sound of agreement. My people have a saying. A warrior who never draws their blade is more dangerous than one who draws it constantly. I never understood that before. Now I think I do. Dawan bent down to pet Bull. She rolled onto her back, exposing her softer underside for belly rubs. It was a sign of complete trust. A month ago, no living thing had ever seen a Ravix do this. My grandmother used to tell me stories, Dawan said softly, about a dog she had when she was young. A rescue dog that had been hurt by its previous owners. Everyone said the dog was too dangerous, that it should be put down. But my grandmother refused. What did she do? Yuna asked. She sat with it. Every day for 2 years. She did not try to touch it or train it. She just sat nearby and read books or did her work. She let the dog get used to having a human nearby who was not going to hurt it. Dohan's eyes grew distant with memory. Eventually, the dog came to her. It put its head in her lap. And from that day on, it was the gentlest creature in the world. It slept at her feet every night until it passed away. It protected her from anyone who tried to hurt her. It loved her completely. He looked at Buell, who was making happy sounds as he rubbed her belly. Buell reminds me of that dog sometimes. Scary on the outside, soft on the inside, just waiting for someone to see past the teeth and the claws to the frightened young creature underneath. Yuna reached out and touched Buell's shell. The cub made a welcoming chirp. Will you teach me? Yuna asked. How to be calm like you. How to choose kindness over fear. Dawan smiled. I can try, but I think you already know more than you realize. After all, you were the first one to sit with me when everyone else was afraid. Yuna's fur flushed slightly with embarrassment. That was different. I just did not want you to be alone. That is exactly it, Dawan said. That is the whole lesson. Sometimes the bravest thing in the universe is just to sit with someone who is scary or different or alone. To show them that they do not have to be afraid of you. To show them that kindness still exists. He stood up and stretched. Come on. Buell needs her evening walk, and I promised Corvus I would help him with his meditation practice. You should join us. Is that an order? Yuna asked with a small smile. Dawan grinned. It is an invitation. There is a difference. They walked out together. Human, Falari, Draxon, and Ravix Cub. 4 creatures from 4 different worlds that should never have been friends. That should have been enemies or strangers, or prey and predator. But they had chosen differently. They had looked past their fears. They had reached out hands and claws and shells in friendship. And that made all the difference. In the hallway. They passed other cadets who no longer ran from Dawan. Some even waved or nodded in greeting. The human was strange, yes, but he was no longer scary. He was just Dawan. The cadet who had passed the impossible test. The cadet who made predators into pets. The cadet who showed everyone that fear did not have to be a prison. Instructor Velix watched them go from his office window. His mandibles clicked softly. He had submitted his resignation 3 times since the Ravix incident. Each time, the council had rejected it. They said he had much to learn from the human. He had hated those words at first. Now, watching the human walk beside his strange collection of friends, Velix understood. He did have much to learn. They all did. And for the first time in his very long life, Velix was ready to be a student again. Outside the academy windows, the stars burned cold and bright in the endless dark of space.